Jenny, let's talk KBH as we talk housing there to Alex's point. Moves at a different tempo than stocks for sure, but still not exactly encouraging.
No, and especially when you consider, I'd say like the right now fragility of a lot of these home builders, what it also means to then like these home building related retailers. I don't think this bodes well for a name like Home Depot, Lowe's either, or Williams Sonoma was another one we looked at yesterday, which I think fairly high tied to some of this housing demand. But KB Home is at least maybe like the one bright spot is the fact that it's not as large as like your DR Hortons, your Lennars. But I do think still concerning the fact that they're sinking after yet another disappointing quarter. I mean, we saw
blasted really.
Yeah, I mean, a pretty big move for a name that is not usually as volatile on the back of its earnings. So sinking as a result of its earnings for their first quarter of their fiscal 2025. Earnings per share came below expectations. This is the second time earnings has missed in just the last 4 quarters. And in addition, sales contracted 5.5%, also missing expectations. Net orders fell by 17% to 2,700 homes, while deliveries did decrease by 9%. And as a result, the remaining backlog is now 4,400 homes, equating to a value of roughly $2.2 million. But their CEO said home buyers are hesitant to make these purchases because of economic uncertainty, affordability concerns. So as a result, their spring housing demand has been overwhelmingly slower than usual. After making some adjustments to communities to provide better value, they said there's been a significant improvement just over the last month. So sure, they're trying to right-size this ship, but this is something that's weighing on the overall space, not just KB Home.
You know, if the home builders and the realtors, the home builders and the housing market just decided to do like a spring sale, this economy would just crank, I feel like.
I know.
Because there's so many people, the affordability issue is really, really still what it boils down to. I know there's obviously a sentiment situation right now. There's a little bit of a stock market situation, but you know, the overall economic situation is still holding in with jobs. So they're telling us that people want to buy the homes. They're just not matching up with where, how much. So if they would cut prices on this thing, and home ownership is
it's
the biggest asset that makes people feel wealthy, I feel like you would get a huge. I mean, that's kind of, I think, the goal of getting rates down, which maybe that's kind of this 4D chess the administration might be playing. Hit the stock market, bring rates down. Suddenly the housing market wakes up again because it's pretty dead right now.
Well, because no one can afford it, because you have right now, I mean, like I've analyzed this to exhaust. You have the boomers that are staying in their homes for longer and longer, so then there's no supply out there, so then they're able to hang on to these houses and just the prices, you're getting gouged at this point. I mean, even in my parents' neighborhood, there are houses selling for like $800,000-$900,000, houses that have historically been like 2-3. So it makes no sense. So yeah, give me this spring sale. I mean, not like I'm in the market for buying, but I think you've got to fix the affordability issue, and finally we're seeing it catch up to these names, because even like as far as average price of homes in the U.S., if you look at like the U.S. average, it's high. It's like $500,000.
Yeah, it's still though it's almost like an inconvenience problem to the economy. I mean, not that, you know, obviously I don't want to say housing is necessarily a convenience, but it's not a big threat so far. It doesn't feel like. It's not like an 08 situation, you know, where prices are cratering and, you know, people are, you know, that exodus, that's not happening. So
well, because thankfully we have other prices to be worried about. Everyone else is worried about like the rest of the tariff impact.
So people are kind of like happy to rent right now. So it's not a crisis. So I don't think the market is going to like sell off because of this stuff, but it just tells us that the new home sales number is going to be challenging. And all the housing numbers have been. All right, let's talk Tesla real quick. Tell me what's going on. I know there's some numbers in Europe, and stock seems to be fine with it.
Stock is totally fine with it, which is this is I guess the point I've been making all day. Is it just goes to show the ways in which the market right now is valuing Tesla's push into China or reach into China versus what's happening in Europe. So we did get some news this morning that their European sales are continuing to contract. This is hugely a result of the anti-Musk backlash. I also think, though, it could also be an affordability issue, but nonetheless, registering 16,900 new cars in February, down 40% from a year ago. With market share now at 1.8%, I think that's actually more interesting.
Yeah, so they never were a big player anyway.
No, down from 2.8% last year.
Yeah,
so we're down a
move
percent.
on. You know, because you've been saying this for a while, that like to care about Tesla's Europe reports is like to care about a fraction of the balance sheet.
It's legitimately less than 2% of their overall, because Germany is their third largest market behind US, China, 2% of their overall sales. So you're telling me EU suddenly moving the needle? No, maybe as far as like a growth story, but not it's not their reliable revenue. And so it's down 40%, we're talking percentages of their overall revenue.
I get it, yeah. I just know people are going to go, here you go, see, like this is the Gerber argument, that people are going to stop buying because they don't like them now. But it's Europe. They never did like them for whatever reason. I don't know.
I would also like to challenge the fact that anytime there's been like this brand perception issue, like as far as Bud Light, for example, Bud Light's back to being the best-selling beer in the United States. So don't let anyone.
Didn't Modelo get
I think it's now fighting for its like one or two, but it's still. I mean, like as far as like brand perception, I feel like a lot of times the headlines will make you say. I think the equal thing with Chipotle. I mean, that was a pretty major PR nightmare for like a few years. Brand perception, they're fully back.
True.
I mean, sure, it looks a little disappointing, but I don't think Elon Musk matters that much to say that this is going to reshape Tesla's growth story going forward.
Product's product, either going to like it or not. Like think about how many times you get picked up by Uber Tesla. It's not like the people are shameful of themselves now.
Right, exactly.
All right, thanks, Jay.